India, a land treasured for her rich resources for thousands of years. The Greeks, Persians, Mughals, and British all aspired to rule her for her resources. For almost 200 years, India was under British control, and its people were subjected to torture and violence. From a large crowd, one man stood up to deliver independence for India. Although he is widely forgotten, Mahatma Gandhi is important to breaking barriers in history because he delivered independence for India after a cruel British rule. Standing up for Indian independence, Gandhi broke cultural and political barriers to deliver independence after 190 years of a harsh British rule. Mahatma Gandhi is also important because, by arranging non-violent protests, Gandhi was able to drive impatient Britain out of India. Along with his protests, his teachings also inspired future activists, including Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela, who both led movements to end racial and cultural discrimination in their home countries. British rule of India can date back to 1757, when the East India Company gained control of thriving India. Taxation by the East India Company left millions of Indians in poverty and starvation, while British soldiers thrived. In fact, the Bengal famine of 1770 left 10 million people dead. Almost 100 years later, in 1857, a rebellion known as the Indian Mutiny took place. The East India Company's rule of India ran effectively until 1858, when, following the culmination of the Indian Mutiny of 1857, the Government of India Act led to Queen Victoria's direct control of the subcontinent at that time in the form of the British Raj, thus abolishing the East India Company of India. 11 years later, on October 2, 1869, in Porbandar, Gujarat, Mahatma Gandhi was born to Karamchand and Putli Bai Gandhi. From a young age, he was interested in becoming a doctor, although his father hoped for him to become a government minister. He followed Jainism and believed in the principle known as ahimsa, which meant non-violence and respect to all living things. These beliefs influenced Gandhi's work later in his life. At the age of 19, Gandhi left home to study law in London at the Inner Temple. Upon returning to India in 1891, he set up a law practice in Bombay, but was met with little success. Following his unsuccessful attempt, he applied for a law firm that sent him to an office in South Africa. For nearly 20 years, Gandhi, along with his wife and children, remained in South Africa. Throughout his stay, Gandhi was subjected to racism and South African laws that restricted the rights of Indian laborers. Gandhi later recalled an incident in which he was removed from a first-class railway and thrown off a train at Pietermaritzburg. From there on, he decided to fight injustice and defend his rights as an Indian man. Upon his return to India in January of 1915, Gandhi began working on rights for Indians. In a series of movements over 30 years, Gandhi delivered independence. In April of 1917, the Champaran Satyagraha laid the foundation for Gandhi's Satyagraha in India. The Champaran Satyagraha movement was the first revolt in the independence movement. During this movement, Gandhi adopted civil disobedience and set up non-violence campaigns. Furthermore, in 1918, the drought in the village of Kheda, Gujarat, instigated the Kheda Satyagraha. Gandhi organized the movement to support the peasants affected by the famine. Gandhi also formed campaigns and peacefully boycotted the taxes that were imposed by the British. As a result, the British Raj abolished all taxes in the region, ending the famine. Thanks to Gandhi's peaceful approach, the villagers and farmers of Kheda survived. Almost 2 years later, from September 1920 to February of 1922, Gandhi and the Indian National Congress led the non-cooperation movement. Following the Jallianwala Bagh massacre in 1919, Gandhi realized there was no hope of receiving fair treatment from the British, and as a result, he planned to withdraw the nation's cooperation from the British government, thus launching the non-cooperation movement. The movement united millions of Indians and shook British authorities. However, it ended up failing. One of the most pivotal movements to gaining freedom for India was known as the Dandi Salt March. Gandhi aspired for India to gain a dominion status and threatened that a revolution for India's independence was imminent if this status was not approved. The British did not agree to this. Due to this, Gandhi started a campaign against the newly imposed salt tax from March to April of 1930. During the march, thousands of Indians followed Gandhi from his religious retreat near Ahmedabad to the village of Dandi on the Arabian coast, covering 240 miles. At the end of the march, Gandhi and his supporters deliberately broke the law by evaporating seawater to make their own salt. By breaking the law, Gandhi and his supporters broke political barriers by disobeying British laws. As a result of the Dandi Salt March, chain reactions of non-compliance and demonstrations occurred throughout the country, leading British forces to arrest Gandhi and his supporters. Years later, after more protests and non-compliance acts by Gandhi, the British government turned to World War II raging in Europe. Maintaining the subcontinent of India and guarding back at home proved to be enduring and difficult for Great Britain. To ease their fight in Europe, the British turned to the Indians for support. By this time, notable figures in Indian history such as Nehru, Vallabhbhai Sardar Patel, and Subhash Chandra Bose joined Gandhi in the movement for Indian independence. Opposing Indian participation in the war, Gandhi's need for independence intensified. Consequently, on August 8, 1942, Gandhi launched a speech calling for the British to quit India. The Quit India movement, as it became known, spurred disorderly and non-violent demonstrations the day after. The same day, Gandhi and Nehru were arrested. Gandhi remained in jail for 2 years and was released in 1944 due to his deteriorating health. Gandhi came out of jail to a seized World War II and an altered political landscape. The Muslim League, led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, had grown in size and strength and demanded a sovereign Pakistan after the British left India. Nehru and Gandhi, however, believed in a unified India where both Hindus and Muslims could reside. The British government at this time had declared that India would receive its independence in the coming years. With the high anticipation of independence, the leaders met extensively to compromise. Talks continued until 1947, when the British government set the date for independence of August of 1947.
Jinnah came from Gujarat. They were Gujarati-speaking people. They were both lawyers who'd been educated in London, had received their legal training there. So in a way, they had a lot in common. But unfortunately, they came into very sharp conflict quite early on after Gandhi returned to India.
After the news was spread, thousands of Indians took to the streets to celebrate. The 190 rule of the British Empire had come to the end, as they were granted their independence. Finally, on August 15, 1947, the sovereign state of India was created. Gandhi's movements proved to be a success after 30 years of constant fighting. Sadly, on January 30, 1948, less than a year after independence, Gandhi was assassinated. Millions of Indians mourned as the father of their nation passed away. Gandhi was a huge figure in the eyes of Indians and to minorities all around the world, as he broke social, cultural, and political barriers by providing Indians with independence and prosperity for years to come. Gandhi greatly affected India and the nation, as his ideologies influenced future rebellions and sparked an age where countries were eager to gain sovereignty and independence from the ruling country. Indians were discriminated for years under British rule, but he broke through this by arranging movements to show his belief toward discrimination and injustice towards the Indian social groups. He was determined to bring peace to the Indian community, ordinary people, and promote relationships within their ethnicities. The Indian social status was extremely low, and he was determined to bring it back up. By deciding to boycott goods and form massacres and boycotts, it shows how eager he was to fix the social and cultural status of Indians. He wanted to fight back for his fellow Indians' rights and aspired to influence others to follow in his footsteps. His non-violent strategies surprised other countries and led to allies being formed and various political relationships that would be beneficial in the future. To reach here, Gandhi had to fight through harsh British rule, taxation, and discrimination. He went through hardships, obstacles, and sacrificed himself to Britain, resulting in the many years of jail time. He fought the British by opposing anti-Indian legislation, putting himself in jail 4 times. His movements, using his belief of satyagraha, showed his political power and impact. His massive protests against goods and services showed the British their overwhelming power and confidence by boycotting their various policies. Gandhi has been one of the most inspirational men on the planet and introduced the idea of independence at any cost. He saved India from oppressive and harsh British rule. He influenced not only one nation, but the entire world, nurturing leaders that fought for rights in their countries.